Welcome to Backstage Pass, your all-access pass to everything Wake Up. I am here with our wonderful producer, Jenna Edwards, and we are going to talk about productivity with fun, because Jenna is all about fun. She is a high energy person, and she keeps this whole team going, and we are going to talk to you about your energy and the secret behind that. But first, I want to ask you, that was a remarkable story, and I had tears in my eyes when I heard that. And we barely got a chance to talk to you, of course, on camera during the segment, but we want to ask you more about it now.
Great.
So tell me, I mean, that was amazing. You escaped a life-threatening accident and turned it around into something so beautiful, so positive that I was myself so inspired. So let's talk about that.
Oh, I love it. Well, what would you like to know? I am an open book. I literally feel like the world would be a better place if we shared more. So, you know, our triumphs, our struggles, our successes, without judging each other for whatever we're going through. So any question you have, I am happy to answer.
Well, start with
the story.
About the story. Yeah,
the story in less than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Or more than 30 seconds, I should say.
No, here you can take more than 30
Yes. So the gist of the story is that I was on a break at work, and I was buying oranges at the farmer's market in Santa Monica, California. It was a gorgeous day, and all of a sudden I heard screaming, and I thought, well, it's not unusual because it's 3rd Street Promenade and there's a lot of people and all that stuff. And I had enough time to go, oh my gosh, it's a tidal wave, and then realize that underneath all of this debris flying through the air and people flying through the air and just the pandemonium, that there was a car coming out from underneath it. And I jumped out of the way, and it's this weird moment where you kind of take stock of everything around you. And there was a man standing next to me. I didn't know who he was, but he ended up not making it. And the car came straight at me and hit one of those big 6-foot thick tables and swerved, and I guess hit him, and the table flew at me and pinned me down. And I saw things that day that you're just not supposed to see. And so I suffered severe post-traumatic stress disorder, like I said on the air, on the episode, and I couldn't read, and I struggled to find basic words. Like, I remember sitting at a table, and all I wanted was the salt, and I couldn't remember the word salt. And I just lost it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be my life. And before that, I was an actress, and I had just booked the series finale of Buffy, and I was like, oh, my life is going to be fantastic. My whole world is coming, to this magical place. And I always say that I was kidding myself, in a way. Like, I love acting, and I love being in front of the camera, and I love doing all of that stuff. But I always knew that I was supposed to create and be a part of the world I'm in now. But at that time, I had gotten a regular job, like a day job, and I was like, oh, I'm making money and life is great. And I was on this path that I thought was a good path, but when your gut kind of lying to yourself a little bit, I just knew that something wasn't quite right. And I always say that when you're there and you're not listening to your gut and you're not listening to what's really going on and your instincts, the universe will throw a car at you. In my case, literally.
It was literally a car.
But if you look at the world, right, there's some sort of car. Yeah. Sometimes it's a roller skate, but there's always something going in front of you to kind of get you this way. But I was really stubborn. I was young, and I was like, no, I'm going this way. And I was like, no, you're not.
This is so cool. I find in my case that usually it starts with a golf ball. And then it's maybe a roller skate and then a car.
Yes.
And that's when it gets your attention. Like, okay, something is really, really not right.
Definitely. And it was the worst experience I've ever had, but the biggest blessing I've ever had at the same time.
Yeah.
And I it brought me here. This morning, I'm gonna reveal. I was in the dressing room, and Don Miguel Ruiz was in there, and he's like, you met him. It's
amazing.
The Four Agreements was one of the first books I could read. Like, I read and I understood, and it clicked, and then I started to like ingest all of these things, and it literally changed my life. So I'm sitting in the dressing room on a talk show, which has always been my dream, about positivity, which is what I'm all about. Having this man who wrote a book that changed my life sign that book, and I just started crying. I was like, this is it.
How amazing.
This is it. And that day, if that day hadn't happened, this would never have happened. It never would have. And so, at least not in this shape and form that really is all about, who I am. So
I love that. I love how you were able to see the tragedy, but actually see the blessing behind the tragedy and connect with that. And then the blessing is now your reality. How cool is that? How cool. I just love that. And that's what I'm all about too. That's what I teach too, is to look for the opportunity behind the tragedy. So I just love that. Now, what I also love about your story is that you found such a fun way to find your expression, because when expression is blocked, that is when healing does not take place. Did you find that, Jenna, that it was healing for you to actually...
So I actually have a funny story of how that all happened.
Let's hear
well,
that.
You guys are gonna be like, why are you talking about this? But again, I really believe that we need to be honest and share. So after the crash, I didn't sleep for 8 months. If I closed my eyes, people died. And so it was like this just traumatic,
I can't imagine,
state of no rest. And so I ended up in the psych ward because my parents, I grew up in a family of alcoholics and addicts. And I knew from a really early age that I have like a 99.999% chance of becoming an addict myself or addicted to something. And so they were like, you need medication, you need medication, you need medication. And I was like, I'll be addicted, I'll be addicted, I'll be addicted. And so I didn't take it, and it nearly killed me. Like, there are certain situations where your chemistry is so off that you have to take the medicine. And so... Again, stubborn, right? The universe will throw a car at you. So the second car in my journey through this whole trauma was I ended up in the psych ward because I literally lost it, and I started ransacking. I finally agreed to take sleeping pills, and thank God my now husband was smart enough to hide them. I ransacked my entire apartment trying to find them. And I would have taken the whole bottle, not because I wanted to die, but because I wanted to sleep so badly at that point. And I had this like a moment of clarity where I was like, okay, stop. This is not right. And I called my friend, and I called my now husband, and I was like, guys, I need help. I might get emotional about this. And I ended up for 13 days in the psych ward so they could regulate my sleep and just like help me. And while I was in there, I finally, like the second week, understood that I needed to be in there for real, because every day I was like, okay, I'm better now. Like, I slept one night, so I'm good, right? And I went up to the nurses at the nurses station, and I was like, when I was little, I used to make collages. Now we call them vision boards, right? But I was little, I didn't know. And I used to that was my art. That was how I created. And I was like, I want that back. And so I went up to the nurse's station. I'm like, can I use some of these magazines to make a collage? And they were like, sure. And I was like, can I have some scissors? And they're like, no, right?
No, not you. No.
No. Hello, do you know where you are? And so I was like, oh, okay, you're right. And so I took these magazines, and I'm so glad I couldn't have the scissors because I had to rip out the pictures and really, really focus on what those images were for me. And I took the time to create this collage of all the things that I wanted back in my life. And it wasn't until like 3 years later that The Secret came out, or even longer. I don't even know when it happened. And I was like, oh, a vision board. But that collage is framed on my bedroom wall, and every single thing on that collage has happened.
Wow.
It's really cool. And so that's when I realized the minute I framed that, because it took me like 3 years to frame it, the minute I framed it, I realized the power of that act, and I started to just craft and create, and just the feeling you get from doing that is so empowering. And so that's really
that
where
is
it started.
so beautiful. And the key is creativity with fun.
Yes.
You were having fun doing that. So that's
Absolutely.
the most important thing. That's the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
So that is just such an amazing story. I
you.
just love it. And I now know your secret, that you are addicted. You're just addicted to positivity.
I am addicted to positivity. It's true.
So-
Fun and function. That's what I always talk about.
That is so cool. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
this amazing story with us. And tell our listeners how they can connect with you further.
Well, here, because I'm producing the show, you can absolutely check out Wake Up's website. But for my personal website is createwithjenna.com, and all of my social media is at createwithjenna.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And remember to wake up.